for us as well. Look, your initial reaction to this announcement of a judicial review then?
Well, I think, first of all, my local authority, Braintree District Council, have worked incredibly hard, and all credit to them and their legal counsel for getting us to where we are with this judicial review. It's important that local people and our local councils and statutory service bodies, that their voices are heard. To be quite frank, we feel that we've been ridden roughshod over, basically, as a local community and as a district, with central government's approach and the decision-making that they have taken. And it feels incredibly unaccountable, very opaque, and that is why local communities here in mid-Essex and my constituents and my local council are very, very unhappy. But this next step is important because, as you've already heard from Mark, this will actually start to question the planning assumptions, the Class Q regulations, which is effectively acting as an authoritarian type regulation to say to local councils, we know best, we know better than you, and we're just going to make these planning decisions with utter disregard for local communities. So that's the main aspect to it. And then, of course, there's been no impact assessment, nothing put out in the public domain, and there are all sorts of environmental considerations, which I can tell you, having just been into Wethersfield and toured the site as well, there are a range of issues there that, quite frankly, you know, will be deeply challenging if 1,700 asylum seekers do come and live here.
Now, that is fascinating. So you have just been in there, you've had a look round, you've inspected the site, and as far as we're aware, 46 people were moved in, quite surprisingly, a couple of days ago. So could you talk us through what the site is like and what potential issues that there are from your own experience?
Well, first of all, it is an extraordinary site. It's enormous because of, obviously, the history of the site, what it was used for, you know, in terms of it once being an American base. So there are lots of physical and logistical challenges here, number one. The site is so big that actually the Home Office, and it is the Home Office, they are spending vast sums of money just literally fencing off huge parts of this base because clearly they do not want the individuals that are here, the asylum seekers, going off wandering and, you know, ending up halfway up a runway or somewhere else. And they're trying to basically keep people as concentrated as they possibly can in key residential and communal areas. I think it's also important just to emphasise that there's only one residential block open right now. Others are being developed, so that means money's being spent on them in terms of, you know, putting new roofs in, new furnishings, new bathrooms, new carpet, all this kind of stuff. Some of these blocks were condemned previously, so not fit to live in. And of course, the Home Office has undertaken a massive obligation and a massive financial investment to turn these blocks around, to make them okay for, you know, asylum seekers to come and stay in, basically, to make them habitable. I've also been into the catering areas. I've had a look around, and I think it's really important to understand that, you know, the Home Office, their role is effectively to bring in subcontractors to provide services. So there's a massive catering company that has been brought in to be here on site with their staff to obviously provide meals. There's also a medical facility here, which, by the way, is a private facility. It's not the local NHS, but, you know, we're still talking about potentially the Home Office are paying for that, but it is a facility that, ironically, the local NHS has been told to pay for, and they are refusing to pay for that NHS facility, the medical facility and provision here, because of course it means money from their budget, which would mean money would go from local communities for NHS services to come straight here.
Wow. I mean, there's some quite shocking revelations there, I must say, certainly when it comes to the NHS budget. A lot of local residents, I was talking to a lovely lady who was standing exactly where you are standing now, actually, yesterday. She was saying to me, look, she's just afraid, really, of this idea of 1,700 men descending onto the area. Will she be safe to go out at night, to walk her dogs? I mean, the safety aspect of this must be a massive concern.
So you're absolutely right, and you know, I do actually want to pay tribute to the local residents here in Wethersfield. I think they've been incredible. I really do. I met a couple of local residents as I was coming here this afternoon. And, you know, it's our job as members of parliament and local representatives to effectively listen to them and do our utmost to do the job of representation for them, which is clearly what I, as one of the neighbouring MPs in the district, the other district MP, are doing. But these are legitimate concerns that they are raising. I think it's important also to reflect upon something else, that clearly when you look around this site, you know, the Home Office has spent a lot of money building fences and things of that nature, but these individuals are free to come and go. There are shuttle buses daily taking them, and the individuals can go to Braintree Town, they can go to Colchester City, and they can go to Chelmsford City. So with that, of course, you know, there are absolute concerns now about people not returning, people absconding, the prospects of these individuals when they go to neighbouring towns and neighbouring cities. We have two cities either side of us, which is Colchester and Chelmsford, and the implications that will have. Funny enough, we've just seen one of the minibuses pull away, and these are the shuttle buses that are going to these local towns and cities.
Oh, wow, OK. Look, I appreciate you standing out in the rain, so I won't keep you too much longer, but I have got to ask, what would you have done as Home Secretary if you were still in post now? What would be different under Priti?
So quite a lot, and you know, people love to airbrush the past, and new governments come in and do that, and ministers do that all the time. But don't forget, the government policy when I was at the Home Office was based upon the new plan for immigration, which was very firm, but also fair in terms of fair to British taxpayers. And the firmness was basically we were committed to building what I call Greek-style reception centres, which had detained facilities as well as non-detained, where we could basically keep those that come to our country illegally, basically in these facilities where they could effectively have their asylum cases processed, and if their cases failed, they'd go into the detained facilities. And then, of course, if they were from countries where we could remove them to, and the government has lots of tools, actually. They have many returns agreements with countries, some of which I set up, that these individuals would be removed back to those countries. But secondly, don't forget the Rwanda policy is my policy, that and obviously from Boris Johnson as Prime Minister during his tenure. That policy was designed to remove people that have no legal right to stay in our country to Rwanda so that they could resettle and rebuild their lives there. And that was exactly the point of basically having detained facilities in reception centres. Patrick, you'll also know that I was looking to put in a temporary facility last year in Linton-on-Ouse, not too dissimilar to, well, much smaller scale than Wethersfield, but a disused RAF base where we could actually help to detain people before they were removed to Rwanda. And that was basically the plans that we had. Now, obviously, governments have come and gone. I chose to leave the government because of all the shenanigans that took place, quite frankly, last year with my parliamentary colleagues. But, you know, we laid the foundations, and I think one of the worries and the problems that we have, and I think the British public, you know, inevitably will be concerned about this, is that you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We have laws in place, Nationality and Borders Act, you know, we had the new plan for immigration in place. You know, we worked for years to get those policies in place and that legislation in place. You can't just discard it and try to supersede it with new policies. The clock is also ticking because the public are so tired of what is going on with illegal migration. And linked to that, of course, we should be utilising our removals policies much more, sending people either back to their home countries or removing them to Rwanda. And when I set up that Rwanda policy, of course, as the High Court ruled last year through the legal case that I'd put together, that was a lawful policy. Now it's been deemed unlawful in recent weeks, and the government's now got to make sure that it goes back and does a lot more work, and it will. I think it will win in the courts, but it has to be very diligent as to how it presents its case back in court again.
Look, Priti, thank you very, very much, especially for standing out there for so long for us and hanging around a little bit. We really appreciate it, and it's great to have had someone on, not just with your expertise, of course, in government, but also to go and have a look at the site. Priti, take care. Priti Patel there, of course, former Home Secretary.